Welcome to It's Not Really About Dance, a podcast on all of the things we're learning about raising healthy, happy, and wholesome kids and teenagers in today's world through the context of competitive dance. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Beth, and we believe that competitive kids' activities are about way more than performance or awards. They're about teaching resilience, humility, confidence, and heart. Each episode, we'll use the context of dance to dive into real talk, practical tips, and stories to inspire you to parent with purpose. Well, hey, Sarah, how are you doing today?
Hey, Beth. I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. We are ready for episode 6 of It's Not Really About Dance, and we are getting into kind of our normal types of episodes starting today. We have done an intro series up until this point, so if you're just tuning in and just joining us for the first time, we highly recommend that you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 5 because we feel like they will give you a great picture of who we are and what we're really about.
And it's not dance.
Right. And then you can start to jump into this series that we're going to be doing going forward. So today we have this topic that we're calling Competitive Dance 101. And we're hoping to thread these in about once every 5 or 6 episodes for this season. So it's not every single episode that we're talking about this, but they'll sprinkle along the way to give you sort of the lingo of this world. When we started competitive dance, we did not really understand what any of the terms meant. And some of them sound really similar to each other. So you start to think that it's all the same thing. But there are these little nuances of how there's all these different types of things going on. So today's is going to be mostly an overarching view of just what are competitions and the different types of events and performances that you might be seeing if you're getting into this world. And I'm sure we have some listeners who are not in competitive dance, but are doing other activities and decided that they were on the ride with us. And so we hope that this one will kind of just give you a little bit of a window into what this world is like so that you can track as we go along what we're actually talking about.
Yes, I'm sure you will hear us use these words and it will help have some context if you know what they mean. It took us years to figure out really the nuances of what some of these things meant. And we're still figuring it out to a degree.
Sure. Crash course in an hour for you guys. And disclaimer, we actually don't know anything about any of this. We are simple parents who have learned along the way. And neither of us danced competitively growing up. And so we've kind of had to learn as we go. And if you know more than we do, hey, we actually have an email address, notreallyaboutdance@gmail.com. And that's a great place. You can reach out to us just if you've started listening and you're into what we're doing and you want to share your own stories or things that we've been doing that you want us to lean even more into because you're enjoying, or things that you think would be great for us to explore down the road. We would love to hear from you in that way. But also, if you are more of an expert in the field and we start talking today about terms that we're still kind of fuzzy on and you know more, educate us. We would love to hear it. We hope that actually all along the way of this podcast, we are learning and growing, and that if you listen to us a year from now, that we're even saying some different things than what we're saying now because we have changed and we've learned and we've grown in some areas. So, yeah.
All totally normal and healthy things to do. As we have lived experiences, we can change our mind about things and learn and know better and different. So we hope that that's what we experience.
100%.
Okay, so let's dive in and start by just talking about performance types. So this is, you are going to watch your kid or someone else's kid dance. What are the different contexts or performance types that you could see? So the first one is pretty typical of all dance studios. They are going to do some kind of culminating show. Some studios might do one in the winter and one in the spring. Some may just do a spring show. Typically, these are recitals. A lot of studios will call them a recital. Some studios might call them a spring performance. But this is where you will go and you will sit and you will watch all the kids at the studio do a routine that they have learned in class. So it's like a showcase of what they have been studying or practicing or working on for that dance season.
Chances are most people listening to this have experienced a recital of some sort, and it's confusing though. So we have picked up on in our context, they've actually kind of even evolved the name of it. And we are trying to understand this. We used to always call it a recital, and that's what it always was when I was growing up. But in more recent years, there has been a heavy emphasis on it not being called a recital, but calling it a spring performance. And we actually do not know what the difference is, but we think it has something to do with a recital being just like a hodgepodge of basically everybody who's participating at the studio gets a chance to show what they are individually working on, so every age group, just like you would go to a piano recital where it's like all these different kids of different ages doing different levels of types of things in piano or whatever. But our shows have evolved to be more of a storyline. And so we think that's what the difference is of like a performance as a plot per se. It goes from start to finish. Think like if you were attending like a Broadway show, like there is a beginning and a middle and an end, and everything progresses in that way. Like I know definitely our winter performance of the Nutcracker is a show or a performance, not a recital by any means, because it is a storyline. But our spring shows have been that as well
Yes,
lately.
and I think of, like, when I grew up, my very limited dance experience, it was a recital, and there might be a theme to it, like, I love New York, or it's on the road, or decades, or I know one year everyone was an animal. I don't even like, I was a little duck. I don't know, but there's you typically a theme to a recital, but it's not telling a story in the way that maybe a show would.
Yes. So tell us if you know more about that. We would love to hear from that. So another layer is if you're getting more involved in your studio, they might have you do performances in the community. So we have seen things like studios perform in parades or at a local festival. We've had a summer street performance that our kids have been a part of. Sometimes even visits to schools or nursing homes or hospitals as kind of community engagement that showcases your context. Again, your studio is putting it together and taking it out.
Yes, so there also could be a community-wide show. So a great example of this is in our city, we have like a citywide Nutcracker where dancers from lots of different studios are involved in this. It is meant to bring community together. And it is a hodgepodge of dancers from multiple different studios.
Right. I mean, most people might be familiar with this. The like, New York Ballet, or if you're in like a big city where they put on the Nutcracker and they invite students from all across the city, you come and you audition. And that is done outside of your studio. It's like an add on thing that you go and participate in, but it's not done within the context of your studio. A neighboring city that's not too far from us actually does these kinds of performances multiple times a year where they do auditions. And there might be one or two studios who prominently, because they're larger studios, take the roles, but they pick like Broadway shows. And it's
Mhm.
it's almost like our spring performances, which are like a storyline type of recital type thing, but they are done by dancers from all across the community that come and audition to be a part of that. So that might be offered in your area or it might not. So this is what we're going to mostly talk about on this episode because hey, it's Comp Dance 101 is competitive events. And so if you're stepping into a competitive level of this type of activity of dance particularly, then you are going to start experiencing a type of event that may be very different from what you've seen. Competitive performances or competitions are held very differently than this. When you attend a recital, a show, a performance in your community, you buy a ticket, you go, you get your seat, you bring flowers to someone you know at the end. That is not how these events are set up. So, dancers, when they go to competitions, their audience is not primarily a large mass of spectators, though they are invited to come into the room typically. their audience is a panel of judges. And so the panel of judges, depending on the venue, if it's an auditorium type setup with tiered seating that's like stable and can't be removed, sometimes the judges will sit up near where like the sound booth is, kind of halfway through the room. But our experience, because of the type of events that we've attended in this context, has been that many of these events are done in hotels or convention centers where there is a stage crew that comes and sets up the room in advance. And basically, the judges are going to be sitting front and center, and there's going to be a wide like space that you cannot cross or get near around them to give them their space. Picture like if you've watched American Idol or something like that. It feels like that, a set of judges sitting behind a table with computers and clipboards and microphones and all kinds of stuff, where they are watching dancers on a stage and they're scoring them, and they have this whole cleared out space around them where no one else can sit, and everybody else sits kind of to the sides and behind them wherever they can get. But what's also different about these events is that there is not really a start and a finish to it. I mean, technically there is, because people have to wake up in the morning and start at some point, but there might be 5, 10 people in the room at that point because it's only the very first dancers competing. So the vast majority of people participating in the competition don't even see the beginning when the lights are still on and before the event quote starts. What most people are experiencing is walking into something that's already in progress. And so basically what you do, this is like a whole world to learn, is you figure out when your dancer is going to be competing or performing, and you have to go and try and find a seat in the middle of this room to watch them with only, I mean, what is it, 15, 20 seconds between routines.
Yes, that is something that can be a little bit jarring, and that I mean, I had to learn, and I've had to tell my husband and my mom that theater etiquette at something like this is a little bit different, and that it's respectful to only move in and out of the seat between performances, but that is just a matter of seconds. So there's a lot of movement happening all the time during these performances. People rushing in really quick because they were just backstage helping their kid and they're about to go on stage. So they're rushing to find a seat, or people whose kid just came off stage and they're trying to get out to go meet them backstage just in that really quick transitional time. So that's something to be aware of and to learn if this is new to you.
Yes. And it's like, if you are used to your kid doing a recital or a performance and you invite all the aunts and uncles and grandparents and preschool siblings and all this, and you're used to being able to like save seats and get a seat and everybody find your seat and like get settled and then clap at the end of performance and hang out with your performer at the end. It just does not work that way at a competition. So like just picture this. This is what it feels like. So if my dancer is competing at 6:32, because that is the kind of stuff that you're going to get. It is 6:32, give or take an hour, is really what that means. So the dancers are stacked like every 3-ish minutes, and you'll get an exact number of time, but it's still an estimate because because
It is a variable about how long everything before it took place.
right. What's most helpful to me, the reason the minutes like that are helpful is, let's say my dancer has 2 routines and I know that they're like 30 minutes apart from each other. So if I see like 6:32 and 7:02, I'm like, okay, there's 30 minutes between my kid's routine roughly. Otherwise, it's very much just it could get delayed because there was a snafu technologically, or a million things can happen. Or it can get ahead depending on the event. And we're going to share more about this in a little bit about the different types of events. They sometimes build in more buffer than others. And if people are running like clockwork, it can get ahead.
Mhm.
And so your going to have to communicate with whoever's in charge and running your team because they're probably going to be giving you updates throughout the weekend. Or you can just ask anyone standing behind, what number
What
are
number
they
are
on?
we on?
And are we on time? Just to get it, because then the dances are numbered in order. Like you might be dance number 650 if it's a really huge event, or you might be dance number 92. You learn where you fit in the order of things. Most of them have a live stream, so you can like pull that up and figure out where they're at. But yes, so anyway, coming back to the way this works. So if you know your dancer is competing at, let's go back to 6:32. You can tell me how you do this, Sarah, because we don't really actually see each other a whole ton during competition weekends, but I tend to say I want to be in the room 30 minutes before if I can. And this is 30 minutes before when I think they're actually competing, like adjusted for if they're before or behind. But about 30 minutes before they're supposed to be competing, or at least like 7 or 8 routines before tends to be my way to judge it. If possible, if I'm not changing somebody's hair or makeup, because sometimes I'm doing that. But if I have the margin, I want to go like get myself in the room, because here's what I have to do. When I enter the door, there's going to be a routine competing on the stage and the lights are going to be out. And I don't need to go walk into the room and find a seat while this routine is on stage, like you said, Sarah. So I've got to kind of hover by the door until those kids run off stage, and then I have 15 seconds. And so my first goal is I'm going to race in and take the first seat available, and I'm going to sit down. While I'm sitting down and the next routine or two are going that are people inevitably that I do not know and don't have any connection with, I'm actually not watching their routines. I am scanning the room for a better seat.
I do the same thing.
So I move into the room. I find my seat that's near the back or near the door, just so I'm in the room. And then I start scanning for a new seat. And then after a routine or two passes, and there's again that 15-second break, I jump up and I hop to the next closer seat. And I kind of continue this process for about 10 or 15 minutes usually, until I land where I'm going to have a clear view to be able to see my dancer when they're on the stage. I am a not tall person, so this is another factor because you're just in a ballroom with flat chairs. There's not usually tiered seating. Some places have that, but the majority do not. Another thing that we do as a team is the parents will kind of work together a little bit because our kids have routines at all different times. And so as we work in and we kind of find our seats, we also look around, and if strangers sitting near us, kind of finish watching their kid and peel off and leave the room. Because again, you're watching your kid do a routine and then you're going to leave the room and go either get them ready for the next one or get them food or whatever. You don't typically stay and just watch 2 hours worth of performance. You kind of like find your spot, you watch your kid, and then you jump up and run in that 15 seconds to go back and help them with the next thing. So during that time that I'm sitting there, I'll notice if other people sitting near me like are peeling off because they're done. You can tell by the cheering usually
Mhm.
they're about to move. And once they leave, I'll put my bag on the chair right beside me and like add an extra seat or two. And that way, my friend who's in the dressing room getting their kid ready, whenever they come in to try and watch their kid, I've already got a spot for them ready. And we just kind of work as a herd in that way and kind of work together. You're not going to be able to save 20 seats for everybody you know. And it's just not very kind to be saving a bunch
Yeah.
of seats because chances are there's other people coming in to watch their kid that's competing before your kid. They're going to come and go within that time. So it's just not very kind to be like taking over a ton of seats.
For the whole day.
Yes.
And people do this.
Yes, it's not. Yes, it's a little frustrating.
Yes. I have trained my mom and my husband in this process of like working your way to a better seat. And so when I have one of them with me, that's really helpful, especially if we have a quick turnaround between dances where I've got to just run backstage and help somebody with a quick change and I'm coming right back because they're about to perform again. I do like having my mom or my husband, whoever's with me, to save me a seat. If it's a quick turnaround like that, that is really helpful to train your competition weekend partner in this process.
We have had to
Pro
train
tip.
we have had to train both of our husbands to be a little bit more oomph aggressive because If you haven't picked up, Sarah and I are pretty outgoing personalities, and we're kind of like going to get stuff done. And both of our husbands are not that.
They're very like, go with the flow and it's all good. And I'm not going to do anything that might be read as aggressive.
Yes. And they're both taller than us too, and they can see from places that we can't see. And so we've had to kind of tell them like how to do all of that and help us out a little bit.
Or it could be that they're distracted because they're watching whatever football game or basketball usually at the
Usually
season
it's
is on their
basketball.
phone and they're not even aware that anyone has gone on or off stage and that it's time to move.
Yes. They are such champs, though. We love
They
them.
are.
Yes.
They're great dance dads.
Yes, they are. So there's that strategy of like getting seats. And you were talking about family members. I'll also mention the other layer of this, as you can imagine, with this quick moving and bopping, and you really can only save no more than 4 or 5 seats at a time kind of thing. It's not the greatest environment for bringing like all of your extended family to come watch your kid perform. I mean, I think there is a balance there. And I think there are a lot of grandparents that just kind of want to see what is this world that my grandkid is in. But if you have someone with any type of mobility issues, or they can't move very fast, or they get overwhelmed by unpredictable situations, or even they thought they were bringing flowers and going to get to hang out with their dancer, they're not even going to probably get to see them at all. You might get lucky with the schedule and they might get a little quick hug and congrats kind of thing, but the dancers are very on the go on these weekends. And so I know our studio has typically had an opportunity for those competitive routines to be showcased in town, like at home at some point in the year. And so I know I particularly like to invite our extended family to come to that so they can see the kids routines, but not have to do the crazy, like, running in and out and finding seats. Because it is more of an environment of, like, it's kind of just the audience is people who are there helping the kid get ready more than it is people there to, like,
Watch a show.
watch a
Yeah.
show. Imagine, like, if you've got a grandparent coming, even if your dancer has 3 routines in that competition, it might be that their routines are at 7:30 a.m. Saturday, and then 2:45 p.m. Saturday, and then 9 a.m. Sunday.
This is a dance competition is the epitome of hurry up and wait. It is like
You
are
hurry, hurry
either
up,
hurry,
and
hurry,
then you
hurry,
wait.
and then, oh, well, we still have 2 hours before our next routine. So
Yes, but it's not.
lots of waiting.
But don't think that means that the dancer is just hanging out for 2 hours. You get to hang out with them. That is not what it is. That's just more of that's going to be the perspective of a visitor that comes to it. Is a lot of sitting around when they don't have access to the dancer, but they have to wait for a lot of things. And you know what? I have seen a ton of grandmas who are here for it.
Mhm.
They don't mind at all. They bring their book. They kind of get to know some of the other parents. They go do a little something. They pop back in. So if you're there and you just want to be around the environment, that's fine. But just know what you're getting into is not like going to a recital type performance.
And it's not a time that you as the parent can really play host or hostess to these people. I mean, because you're busy. You are helping your kid get dressed, get changed, bringing them food quickly. You're running back and forth from the dressing room to the performance room. So it's hard for you to entertain people in this environment also.
So yes, so when you hear people talking about going to a competition performance, that's kind of what you're getting.
So something else that is a term that probably everyone is familiar with, but looks a little different depending on where you are in the dance world is auditioning for things. So at competition or convention weekends, one thing that is part of this is auditioning in those convention classes. And that usually is for a scholarship or an award. And this is not something that people are invited to watch typically. Most of the time at any audition, it's going to be a closed audition. So, not something that parents are in the room for to see your kid do this performance type. Again, it is for a panel of judges. And in the convention classes, it's going to be mostly for those masterclass teachers who are in there watching. And in the competition and convention world, they will learn a little combo in their classes in a certain style for the most part. And sometimes they may learn it a day ahead of the audition, and sometimes they learn it right there, right before they have to actually do it for the judges.
I think it's much more rare that they would learn it in advance because
Yes.
the point tends to be that they're trying to see who can pick up choreography quickly.
Yes. We have been to an event or 2 that they have had, a day to learn it, but most of the time it is in the moment. If they are auditioning for a summer program, this is another thing that if your kid starts advancing through this a lot, they may have opportunities to audition for certain summer programs. Maybe they want to go to a ballet program for the summer. There's all different types, but they can audition for those as well. Most of those are audition only for acceptance. So they might make it in and they might not. Again, that is not a performance that you, as the parent, would be able to go in and watch them do. There's really not much that they can do to prep for this other than the things that they already know how to do, which is pick up choreography quickly, know how to follow and track along with that kind of thing, and then do it well in that moment. They often do it in a group of a few dancers at a time. Sometimes you may make an audition video. We have had to do that for our children and things before. And that's a case where you would obviously get to see where you have to film. It depends on what program they're auditioning for. And then they can win either a scholarship if it's at a dance convention weekend or placement in some kind of a program that maybe they're trying to get to.
And then the very last type of performance that kids might be doing in this world, and this is something that we actually don't have experience with, but if you do, we would love to hear your experience. So email us, let us know, is a professional performance opportunity. We know that this is a thing where some kids are actually cast in Broadway shows or traveling theater groups, or some kids are in TV and film and music videos and commercials and all of these types of things that can come from their dance pathway. That is a real thing that is out there. It is obviously a much smaller percentage of dancers who participate in that. And it's not something that our kids have participated in yet, but it's out there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and now and transition into the different types of competitive events. This is really what we're here to talk about. And we've touched a little bit on the watching of the competition and how you see it as a spectator. But what are these? And so this is one of those that when we first started, I don't think I realized the difference between these two words, competition and convention. And then the third one, which is putting both of them together. But this is like very 101. Like this is what you need to wrap your head around when you're first getting started. Basically all of those competitive type events that you go to are run by a business that travels around, in our case, the US. Sometimes they are more regional and they don't go around the whole US. They just have like a pocket that they're serving. But these are companies. And so they travel around and they all have like fun names that relate to dance or just some cool verb. We're going to try not to like call out single ones, but
I feel like they could be interchangeable with summer youth camp events.
yes, yes. T-shirts for youth group, like summer camps, have the same types of names. So it's like a verb or something.
I know I don't even want to like make one up because it
It
probably
probably
actually is
exists.
one. One of the
Yes.
two, either a dance competition or a youth retreat.
That would be such a fun game. We need to do this
Yes, we
sometime.
do.
Competition or
Or
youth
youth
group
retreat.
event.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm in.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we digress. Anyway, so the difference here, if you are attending a competition, this is a competition only event. What this means is that dancers have certain routines that they compete, just as we described before. They're numbered, so you get a number of your routine, and that is the order of them appearing, and you get a time of appearance, and you go on a stage and you compete your routine for, like, 3 to 5 minutes, or maybe if it's a production, it's a little bit longer than that. And then you go get either changed and ready for the next one really fast, or you have a break until time to compete the next one. And then at the end of the event, there will be an awards ceremony. They share scoring and they call it adjudications. And we're going to do a whole nother episode about this. So I'm not going much into this, but you get a score on, like, a number scale score of how you did. And then they, like, have categories, like, they're kind of like report card grades, A, B, C, D, E, but they have fun names instead, which are highly confusing.
Always like a precious metal or
Yes.
a
Yes.
gemstone.
Yes. So
That means something, but can mean something different
at the next
depending on
event.
different competitions.
Yes, yes. We'll have a whole episode about this. But anyway, so those they get a score, but they also have placements, like, obviously, like, first place, second place, that kind of thing, grand champion sometimes. Where you were listening to who was first place and second and you think you won nothing, and then all of a sudden, surprise, you're grand champion. But then the next event the next week doesn't do that. So then it is so
It's so
confusing.
confusing.
These are scored, and that's all you do for the weekend. You show up, you compete, you get a score, you get your placements, and you move on with your life. A lot of times, the events that do these competition onlys have another type of event that they do throughout the year. And so, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So that would be a convention event, which means there is no competition. The dancers are not performing any routines at all. They are just going and taking master classes in various styles of dance throughout the weekend. Sometimes it can be a 2-day convention, like a Saturday and a Sunday. We have been to convention only weekends that were just 1 day of classes, but they're not competing their routines. They are just there to learn. And there often is an audition element as part of a convention. Typically, there is, where they can win scholarships. Usually, that scholarship is some kind of a discount to that same event at another city or the next year. Sometimes they have other types of awards they can win, like to a certain summer dance program or something like that. But
Or merch type
or
stuff
merch,
sometimes.
yes, which honestly, that's probably my kid's favorite thing to win is a sweatshirt. But the purpose of that weekend is learning from different teachers than what they are normally exposed to in their studio. Oftentimes, these masterclass teachers are really well credentialed people who have worked professionally. My kids always like to look up who is coming to teach the master classes and if they know them from, a TV show or a Broadway show or something like that. But it's a really neat experience that kind of, I feel like, takes a lot of the pressure away because they're not having to compete. They're just there to learn and have a good time. Now, sometimes, and this is what our studio does the most of, there is an event weekend that is a combination of both of these things. It is convention classes and competition, which this is a whole different beast because there is a lot happening. Most of the time, this looks like early on a Saturday morning, you'll get up and they'll go ahead and start taking their convention classes.
Which the event starts Friday, though. So there are competitions happening on Friday. But if you're just starting, you may not be involved in that.
Most of the time, it's solos that they'll start on Fridays or small groups, depending on the age of your kid and depending on the competition, too, what they start competing on
You
Fridays.
just never know. It is a full weekend event. And there's been some events that'll have, like, bonus classes on Friday afternoon or Friday evening.
Those are usually optional, but if you're already there, then it's something to do and great for them to go ahead and start to get to know who their teachers are going to be for the weekend.
We did have one last year that, like, their required convention classes
Yes,
were Friday.
started on Friday. Yeah, but that is less typical, I think.
Yes, for sure.
But they'll get up really early. They'll start those convention classes. There's always a schedule. They're broken up by age group. And the way they break them up by age is different from event to event. Sometimes they will have minis, juniors, teens, and seniors. Sometimes they will just have juniors, teens, and seniors. Sometimes the age breakdown is different. It might be ages 5 to 9 in a certain room as the minis, but then at the next event, your 9-year-old might be considered a junior. It just depends on how that competition has them broken down, but they are broken down by age group in those convention classes. So at a combination weekend, they'll take classes till typically a little after lunch, 1 or 2 o'clock or so. And then the competition starts almost immediately. We
Mhm.
have had times where we are doing hair and makeup for routines while they eat their lunch, and then they're going to go back in for one more class for an hour because their call time for their first routine is immediately after their convention classes end.
Sure, if they're one of the first routines competing in the competition, it's probably only like 30 minutes after the classes end.
Yeah, they start those right away. So then the rest of the day is spent in the competition, which runs pretty much how we've already talked about how it would. And those go late into the evening, and then awards are late that night. And then on Sunday at these events, they will have more classes for again till a little after lunch. They'll get a lunch break. But then there is often a closing show. So there usually is no competition happening on Sunday. That's mostly Friday and Saturday. But Sunday, they will do a closing show where some routines get invited back if they did really well or the judges really like them. They'll get invited to perform again at the closing show, which is so fun when you're trying to pack up a hotel room and you've got to keep one costume out and enough hair and makeup stuff to get them ready to perform a second time.
Or last year, we had a routine that was recompeting that had costume changes within the routine.
Multiple
So we
costumes.
had like 3 to 4 costumes we were carrying
And
around.
you have to get out of your hotel room, so you just have to drag those around with you. It's so great.
And hope they don't get ruined.
Right.
Heaven forbid it's raining that day.
Yes. But at that closing show is typically where they will announce who has won scholarships from the auditions that took place in their master classes. And then you get to see those final routines perform, which I do enjoy that because sometimes there's one that scored really well that you heard about in the awards, but you didn't get to see because you were backstage or, doing something else. And it's fun to get to see the ones that did really well.
I may be the only one, but I'm always secretly rooting for some routines from our studio to get recognized, but not the ones that I have to prepare a kid for.
Same.
And those closing shows can range from 10 minutes to 2.5 hours. And it's when you're trying to get out of town and back on the road to go home and your kid go to school the next day.
And I do think that it is important to attend those
Absolutely.
because this is part of being on a team. And even if your kid is not reperforming, and even if you are sure to your core that they are not getting a scholarship, it says a lot when you still show up for your team because there is a good chance that someone from your studio is going to be recognized. And it is important for you and your child to be there to cheer for them.
Yes. While we sometimes are a little tired at those events, I think I do better if I mentally prepare in advance because your schedule you get will tell you the time that the closing show starts. And the difference is your schedule for all their other classes all weekend tells the range of the class time. So you know the ending time. So I have gotten aware for my own spirit, I just go ahead and prepare to not be out of there until like 2 hours after the closing
Mhm.
show is starting. And if we're out sooner, great. And we find ourselves to be a lot more relaxed. We end up like taking pictures with our team a little bit at the end and, maybe changing clothes and grabbing something to eat on the way out of town in a different way than if we were like, the closing show starts at 3. So, yay, we're leaving at 3. But that's not usually reality.
And I think coming into it that way kind of helps you come down from the emotional and physical high of the weekend. It lets you kind of wind down from all of that and prepare to go back to normal life that afternoon and the next day too. But something I didn't mention was at competitions and conventions, you're not going to get your schedule or know when your kid is dancing until maybe 2 weeks ahead of time. That's generous. It's often a week before. So you won't know exactly what their performance times are or how much time they have between routines or what their class schedule is for conventions until very close to the actual event.
If your kid is on competition team and you know the weekends of the competitions, you need to be prepared to, at the very least, from the time they get out of school Friday all the way through the day Sunday, be unavailable for other things. I've had parents reach out to me and ask me if I've attended this certain event before and do they think they can swing their other child's birthday party on the Sunday afternoon, and my answer is I would not do that.
Could it be possible? Yes.
You won't know till a week in
You
advance
won't
though.
know, but if you were trying to come from a competition or convention weekend and pull off a birthday party, you were gonna regret that decision because you were gonna be
Absolutely.
exhausted.
Yes. Yes, and the older they get, the more often things start earlier on Fridays. I hope this doesn't scare everybody away, but when my daughter was only her 2nd year on the team, she was a 4th grader, and her duo got scheduled to compete at 7 a.m. on Thursday. So that it was a huge event. They had so many routines they had to expand all the way into Thursday, and we were routine number 1 of the competition. I told my daughter, "You will probably never, ever, ever be routine number 1 again," but we got the grand honor of having to leave town Wednesday after school, spend the night, compete on Thursday morning, and then we drove home and checked into school for the second half of the day, Thursday and Friday. And then after school Friday, returned for the remainder of the weekend. And there were some other kids that had a similar schedule and they just like said, forget it. We're just taking the second half of the week off. And they stayed Wednesday night all the way through Sunday. So there are times that it just really takes over your life. And it can sometimes be sooner than you think in your kids' history of doing this. It's not always just solos on Friday.
And even if that's not a concern, sometimes depending on where you're traveling to, I mean, I know we've gone to cities that are up to 3 and 4 hours away from here, and so I have had to kind of give my principal a heads up about maybe needing to be off on a Friday, or at least being off half the day so that we can go ahead and get on the road, because if we have to be there by 6 o'clock on Friday night, you've got to plan in that travel time, but not knowing for sure until really close to that event, depending on your job, that may be something that you kind of have to navigate, and knowing when you can take off work and when you can actually let them know that you need to take off work.
Right. So the last thing that we'll touch on is the concept of nationals. I feel like this term is like thrown around, but I think there's a little bit of a misconception of what it is. So let me tell you what it is not. It is not the one culminating event for all dancers in the country for the year.
It's not the Super Bowl of dance.
You would think that that's what it is. What it is there are, I would say, hundreds of different companies that do dance competitions. And they all travel the country all year and go every weekend to a different city and do these events. And every one of them has a nationals event in the summertime. Some of them have multiple nationals events so that East Coast people can go to one, West Coast people can go to one. I've seen some that are even more regional than that. So it's not nationals, but it's like
Another
a
regional.
super regional or
Yeah.
something. But basically what that is it is a week-long competition convention, more or less.
Mhm.
So you go for an entire week. They usually do it in a very popular tourist destination where people are going to want to kind of vacation so they can bring their family. And the kids take convention classes all week long, and sprinkled throughout the week are another round of competitions. Typically, you're competing your same routines that you've been competing. And supposedly, most of the time, a routine has to have scored at a certain level or above at their previous competition in order to qualify to go to nationals. But that level, from what I have seen, is the level that the vast majority of routines would surpass. So most of your routines would be allowed to compete at nationals. At least that's how I've seen it on most convention tracks. I think it just depends on the event. But so a lot of studios will choose a certain brand company of competition that they just feel like they align with, that matches their values, that likes their students, and like they feel like they have a presence with and recognized with, and they will have plans to attend the nationals event for that brand either every year or every other year. They usually sprinkle in like fun DJ parties and like the kids get to dress up fancy. I mean, we've been on vacation before where there's a dance nationals convention going on at the hotel where we are located, and it's a million girls in party dresses hopping on tour buses to go do the fun things.
It's like a big vacation with your friends where you also get to dance a lot.
Yes. And so I feel like it's more of a culminating thing that the kids all work towards and is like a big hoorah for the end of the year, to be really fun and celebratory and to be in another location and to feel like maybe they're seeing a broader span of people represented, so that those routines that they are already really proud of can really like get that final stamp. Also at these, they tend to, each brand will pick like certain like dancers of the year out of kids who have had solos and things like that. So it can just be like a big final celebration on the year. But what it is not is like, we are the best dancers in the country. I bet if anybody listening to this knows anybody who has been to any dance nationals, they claim that they were first place in something. And so do the math. Not everybody is first place. There's a lot of first places because it's like a million categories at a million events. So that's what it is. But a lot of studios do attend these as kind of a big culminating thing.
And the ones who win are always very impressive and very good.
Absolutely.
But there are also hundreds of routines that have won nationals.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Okay, so briefly, let's just touch on what you see when you go to these events. Like, what are the types of dance that are actually happening at these things?
So they're all of it, to sum it up in a really short sentence. You will see a little bit of everything and lots of nuanced variety within all of those categories too.
So let's speak to our friends who maybe are listening but don't know dance. So
Yes.
tell us about the types, like the different types of dance.
So ballet is exactly what you think that it is. When you think about a ballerina, this is the type of dance you will see. Often very beautiful costumes. They might have point shoes on. They might be doing flat ballet, but usually it's to some type of classical music. It may be a piece or a section of a well-known ballet like Swan Lake that they are performing. Ballet is less common in the competition dance world, but many studios do compete it if their studio is really good at that.
And there are some competitions that specialize in ballet instead of other things.
Right, it'll be only ballet competition. But that is, again, not
Less common.
typical. It's less
There aren't
common.
hundreds of those like there are of the others.
Right. So jazz is going to be more, it's usually a little bit more upbeat. The song probably has words to it. A lot of younger kids compete in jazz really regularly. That seems to be a category that a lot of the minis and juniors do compete in, is jazz. It's often, I mean, even sassy jazz has become its own thing, but lots of personality, lots of facial expressions. Usually the costumes for this are brightly colored and fun.
And there are going to be technical dance descriptions for all of these, but we are trying to give just the like ordinary person looking at the stage what you're going to see.
Yes. Lyrical and contemporary kind of can blur together a little bit. I think lyrical is maybe more ballet adjacent.
Well, it's meant to be that you're dancing with the words,
Right.
but I don't know that that's always what it is, because I've honestly seen some instrumental songs that people do lyrical dance to.
Yes.
So we've gotten away from that a little bit.
Yes. And I think traditionally, maybe younger kids might do lyrical and the older kids might do contemporary, but that's not always the case. Older high school age girls do have lyrical routine. So I think if you're coming into this and you see a high schooler doing lyrical, that doesn't necessarily mean that the skill or the talent isn't there, that they're doing something babyish. It just means that it's a slightly different style and it's more dancing to the words, like you said, Beth. Contemporary.
I was gonna say, what I would love to hear your take and mine on if you were looking at a lyrical contemporary routine, how you decide which one is lyrical and which one is contemporary. So you said dancing to the words for lyrical.
And I think the costume too. I think of a lyrical costume is prettier than a contemporary costume is. Contemporary to me has a little bit more edginess to it. It may be a little bit more interpretive or a little weird or strange to non-dance people who are looking at it than a lyrical is. How would you define those two?
Yes, I would say so. I think lyrical more flowy would be my way to describe it.
Yes.
More maybe more sweet. Contemporary, I feel again more edgy and just artistic, like, interpretation of something, um, a little outside the box. When my oldest daughter, it was her first year on competition team, and she didn't take any contemporary classes, she took lyrical, and she got cast in a contemporary routine, and I asked another mom, "What does contemporary mean?" And she said, "It looks like they're dying." That was her description. Now, did my kid look like she was dying? Absolutely not. It was probably more of a lyrical routine, and it was, like, the sweetest little dress they wore, but they did more of the, like, flat-footed, like, instead of pointed toes. Like, they're just some more modern twists on it.
I have a friend that danced and she defined contemporary as flexed foot, act like you got stabbed. It's a
Sure.
contemporary move. So you will also see musical theater, or some competitions might call this Broadway, which is that it is telling a story. There are clear characters in this. It could be a big group routine, or it could just be a solo or a duo or a trio, but it is typically to a well known story or movie or Broadway show, and they are acting out the plot in their dance.
Sure, a lot of times lip syncing as well.
Yes, tap is just that. I don't know that that really needs much of an
Shoes that make
explanation. Shoes
noise.
that make noise, which sometimes is hard in a competition room because these performance spaces are not quiet, and it's hard to hear if it's like one person tapping. Sometimes they will bring like a piece of wood or a specialty type flooring that they will tap on for their performance because it's louder versus them tapping on what the regular stage is. But that tap can look like a lot of things. But yes, shoes that make noise. Then there is hip hop, which is more commercial style dance. It's going to be a little bit edgier. Little kid hip hop,
Street
street
dancing with
dancing.
your tennis shoes
Yes.
or
Little kid hip hop looks very different than older dancer hip hop.
and it depends on the studio. I think the culture of the studio can play into this a bit. Like some hip hop looks a little more like jazz.
Mhm.
And I think there's like dance team style hip hop also, which is a little bit different than more of a like urban style hip hop. Just like there's different types of jazz, I think there's different types of hip hop.
Yes, and those are kind of the ones you can expect to see at every competition. Now, there are some other categories that are a little bit more nuanced and smaller. One is called open. And so really that just means that that routine does not fit into one of those other dance styles that we just named. It may be a combination of different things. A lot of times for our studio, open means it is going to be the weirdest creepy dance you have ever seen and you don't really know what is happening.
Would you like me to tell the story about this?
Please do.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to tell a story. This is a very mild PG story, by the way. So if your kids are listening with you to this, if you want to screen it first and then bring it back, you can. But I was sitting with another friend and watching a competition one time. And we were watching this routine. And just to honor people, I'm not going to describe the name of it or the context of it exactly. But this was a very outside the box routine. I'm going to give enough descriptions so we can kind of get there. Of like, there was almost no sounds in the music track. Like, it was almost complete silence. There was some very dark, just like prop boxes. And it was like a small group routine with high school students. and you kind of didn't even know like what it was about, but it was almost like they would just insert these random words and sounds into the middle of the song.
It was very good.
It was really good, and the dancers were very talented, but the whole time you're trying to figure out what is the story here. And like my mind was going to, is this someone going through some kind of like tragedy? Like I almost interpreted it as like, is someone trying to prevent someone from harming themselves? Like it was
That's
like,
what I thought
it
too.
was very like deep and like heavy.
A deep and this was like older high schoolers performing this, so
Yes.
appropriate for that age.
But again, the music was nothing but silence and like random sounds popping in and like single words. And so we're sitting there in this very quiet room, and an older gentleman was sitting behind us.
Someone's granddad who did not know what he was getting into.
And my friend and I are sitting there, and we just hear all of a sudden, what the hell? In the middle of the silence, in the middle of the dance. And we about died. And we're just laughing like under our breaths and trying to be controlled. And then we had to kind of unpack it later. But we have now dubbed like any of those routines that we see, we call them what the hell
The
dances.
what the hell dance.
And even at the beginning of the season, the last several years, we're like, who got the what the hell dance this year? Like, which age group, which small group? Oh, they got the what the hell dance. Like, because those are very popular right now, and they're actually really good for the kids to learn how to do. And our studio has explored, we've had some great choreographers who have explored some ways to get kids to dance to kind of those deeper emotional places, but not in an inappropriate way for their age. Like, again, I want to be honoring and not name all the specifics, but I know our like middle schoolers got to do one a year or two ago that was like, I would call it a what the hell dance,
Mhm.
but it was like more playful in the way that it was done and like imaginative storytelling. But I can say enough is it was like some disgruntled workers, you know? So like they were expressing their emotion in that way, and it had some dark-ish themes, but not inappropriate for middle
No, and
schoolers.
they had such a blast doing that. They learned so much from those routines where they have to learn to emote on stage feelings that they don't personally experience very often, but
Mhm.
still learning to communicate that through dance, which is pretty cool. So, all of that is to say that when you go to these events, be prepared to see some routines that you might not be familiar with, especially it might not be something that your studio really does or explores, but other studios there will. I can
Sure.
say pretty definitively that that will be there. And something to know too, if you have younger siblings who might be tagging along with you, that there are some dances that have some pretty deep meanings. I mean, you said it was quiet in that room because everyone was captivated. Like
Mhm.
those rooms are not often quiet, but it was then because you might not have known what it was about, but you knew it was about something.
Yeah, and some of those open routines could just be like they're doing ballroom and there's no category for
Right.
that, or they're
Yes.
doing a cultural dance of some sort. That's kind of cool when we see like studios that tap into some cultural style of dance that we don't even have around here, or acro of depending on the event, like sometimes there is an acro category, and sometimes that just gets thrown into open, or sometimes it can be categorized as jazz or musical theater with acro in it. But many of them have rules about like you can't have more than a certain number of acro tricks, or it like has to be in the acro category.
Something else I've seen that falls into the open category because we're in the South is clogging, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
thing here. But some of these big events that travel the country maybe don't have that as its own category because it's not a very common style of dance. But around here, there's a lot of people who clog. And so the cloggers end up in the open category too.
Yes. I mean, we've even seen, do you remember that time we went to an event where we had to wait forever because they were building an entire structure on the stage?
For like aerial silks, I
Yes.
was so scared. I was holding my breath that entire routine because it was like this somebody's dance dads were out there building this very tall, I mean, it looked like playground equipment. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was not anchored to the floor. And this girl was like doing amazing things on these aerial silks, but I kept watching that structure like shift around as she moved and like hop around the stage. And I was terrified that she was going to fall. And there's like one gymnastics mat put underneath
Right.
for her safety. That girl's mom is a braver woman than me. I would not have been able to watch my kid do that. I was so scared. But that was definitely open.
And it took forever to build. I think we were sitting in the audience, like, for 15 or 20 minutes while they're building this structure.
They do have rules about that though.
Yes, you can't. You're supposed to be on and off. I mean, typically the routines go on and off in, like, 15 seconds, but this was a competition only event, which they're not cramming convention in there. I think they give a little bit more leeway, but I think it's supposed to be a minute.
But you can get deducted points if you take too long for setup. So they clearly weren't concerned about that.
I know. Well, I mean, if they were depleting, like, by the minute, it would have, like, drawn their score way, way down by the time they were done.
But yes, you will see all sorts of styles of dance at these events that you maybe have not encountered before. So just buckle up for the ride because it is always entertaining. It is always entertaining.
Yes. Okay, so I think that's enough for today with just giving you a little bit of a picture of what these things we go to on the weekends are when we do competitions. So let's get back to our question that we ask every episode as we wrap up today. And Sarah, it's not really about dance. What is it about for you right now?
Right now, it is about outfit planning for me. I have mentioned this before. I work for a travel agency as well, and I'm getting to go to Disney in a couple weeks for their Jollywood Nights event. And this is like a very glitzy, glamorous, kind of adults, more geared holiday Christmas party at Hollywood Studios. And everyone dresses really fancy for this. And I am stressing about what I'm going to wear. So Beth is actually going with me to this,
We're bringing
and
our
we're bringing our
moms,
moms. So there's a lot of layers to
who
planning this.
neither of them have been to Disney World since the 1990s.
Yes, like 30 years close to. So, yes, I'm trying to outfit plan for myself and my mother in a way that does not scare her off from this trip. But I'm also just excited about it too. So, I have been looking all over the place for what I want to wear, and I just can't seem to narrow it down. So, that's what it's about for me. Beth, what is it about for you right now?
So, what it's about for me right now is this puppy rescue situation that is going on. So, this morning, my husband was on the way to pick up some groceries for us and called me as he was heading out of the neighborhood to tell me that there was this little dog that was like walking in circles in the middle
Oh,
of the road. And
no.
it's getting colder this time of year, and he thought that this dog was maybe too cold and got scared or whatever. So I said, okay. So I got my stuff together. I went outside, and this dog is like it's like a tick type thing, like walking in circles. So I get closer
Oh.
and realize by looking at its eyes that it's blind, and it's right in the middle of the road.
Oh,
And
no.
so I was like, okay, what do I do? And my youngest daughter had followed me out there and like in her pajamas, like trying to help. And I get closer and I'm like talking to this dog, trying to calm it down. And it started shivering and sat down, and it would let me pet it, but it was kind of skittish and like moved. This is like tiny little like Yorkie, an older, dog. So as I'm like trying to like, negotiate with this little dog, neighbors start coming out. And this is really great. But everybody's like all of a sudden teaming up to try and figure out what to do with this little dog. And there's like cars coming down the road.
Did it have a collar or
No,
anything?
no collar or anything. And so to protect it from these cars that are coming down the road, because some of them are not slowing down, I was like, we got to try to pick this dog up. So I just kind of like swooped in, and then it like nipped me on the finger. And so I have been bit by this mysterious dog. I mean, granted, it was fine. Like, it was not like harmful, but I'm also like, we don't know anything about this dog.
Right. Has it had its rabies
Right,
shot?
right, right. So we start trying to strategize what we're gonna do with it. And this other lady, this is early morning. This lady is out in her robe. She takes her robe off, and we use it to like corner this dog. And she's like holding it and it's like shaking. And this other guy was like, it's cold. So we didn't want to just put it in my backyard. But he's like, you can put it in my garage, but I don't have a way to like contain it. So I was like, our dog has a crate that we only use when our cleaning lady is coming, and that's not for like another week and a half. So I have now moved my crate into my neighbor's garage, and this little dog that is blind is now just hanging out that we don't know, and we hope that I have not been bitten by a rabies dog. And so it's
I
kind
hope
of
that
crazy.
too.
So this is my world right now. Just
Boy.
yes, I will update. You can ask me the next time that we come together
Yeah, I'm gonna need a follow up
how
on this
that
dog
went.
situation. Seems like I think you need to take it to the neighborhood Facebook page.
It's on there. That's always an eventful thing, but it's on there. But yes. So, yeah. So, as we wrap up today, just again, if you want to let us know if you're enjoying what you're hearing and you want to let us know about your experiences, questions that you have for us, or any fun insights, feel free to email us, notreallyaboutdance@gmail.com. You also can follow us on Instagram at notreallyaboutdance. Or if you are enjoying what you're hearing, we would love if you would subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Give us a review, a rating, and maybe just consider sharing with a friend that you think would enjoy coming along. We've started hearing from a few of you who have been listening, and we're hearing a lot of that you feel like you're just sitting here with us. And that is exactly what we want. We want you to feel like you have some friends who see you and are with you in all these kinds of conversations that we're having. And so, again, if you have a friend that would enjoy it as well, feel free to bring them along. And our next episode, we are going to talk about managing your expectations and taking care of your own heart, not just your kids. So this one's going to be particularly parent geared, and we hope you'll join us. So we'll catch you next time.
Bye.